This segment brought to you by Boykin Contractors in Florence, Mississippi. They can do construction, roofing, remodeling, additions, repairs. They do it all over the metro area. Lots of satisfied and repeat customers. All you got to do is just go check out their social media pages and just look at them reviews on Google, Facebook, etc. Licensed, bonded, insured with the Mississippi Board of Contractors. Bryce Boykin, man, just a good old dude from down there in Florence, Mississippi. Operates his business from a Christ-centered perspective with honesty and integrity being the top three things. Christ, honesty, integrity. And, man, you can't go wrong with that. And I'm just going to tell you, when people put their name on their business, it just hits a little different for me. You can't change your name. You can't run from your name. You only got two things in this world. Them things and your name. And Mr. Boykin here puts his name on it. Give him a shout today. Just search Boykin Contractors, Florence, Mississippi. His number will pop up. Boom. There you go. All right, man. We got a special guest on the Mazda of Jackson phone line, Mr. Kingfish from JacksonJambalaya.com. Good morning, Kingfish.
Morning.
Appreciate you jumping up and doing this with me. Man,
I'm not jumped up. I'm laying flat on my back right now.
As I wish I was after only 5 hours sleep. All right, so great work with this SmithWills Stadium stuff, man. I went back and I did watch the 10-minute clip on your YouTube channel yesterday of the city council meeting where they were discussing this. These are my words, not yours. I don't know how they get anything done down there based on that 10-minute video.
Can we say shuck and jive? Because that's what that was for 10 minutes. Shuck and jive.
Shuck and jive, man. It was absolutely mind-boggling, and it just encapsulates how business does or doesn't get done in Jackson, depending on your perspective.
Yep.
All right, so the SmithWills stuff, a lot of money is being left on the table. This dude's, at least on paper, he's making a bunch of money off this parking contract, and he's not paying his rent. Well, not paying what was agreed in the initial lease. Bring people up to speed.
Yeah, here's the story, okay? Back in 19, we got SmithWills sitting there basically empty, so the city council made a deal with Tim Bennett. He has a company called Cush Sports Group. So they gave him a lease, 10 years, 10-year lease. It was either 10 or 20, and then, 10-year lease, and you have 2 renewable 10-year terms on it. So he's going to have it a while. Now, the minimum rent now was $125,000 a year, or 20% of his marketing revenue. So that was like, for billboards, signs, and stuff, whichever was greater. Okay, so the minimum was $125,000. All right. Now, you're supposed to start paying that in October of 2020. He was also, now, for the audience, here, this is important. This is the one you remember. He was also supposed to get a $5 million performance bond and register and send a copy of it to the city. Okay.
Tell people what a performance bond. Tell people what that is.
It's if he doesn't perform the contract, then they can recover against the insurance company. The city can.
Yeah, got it. We used to have to get the same thing when I would get a liquor license. We had to get a tax bond for like $5,000 in case we didn't pay our taxes. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean it covers the city, and he was supposed to get one for that. Okay, so he was also supposed to make $6 million of improvements the first year at SmithWills. Okay, all right. So let's fast forward to now. We get to now, and I was curious. So I did an open records request and found out he's only paid a grand total of $32,500 since 2020. Yeah, that's it. Not $125,000 a year, just $32,500. That's it. So anyway, so you look at it going, wait, he should owe us at least $500,000. What's going on here? Well, what I discovered yesterday with the city council, here's where it gets fun. Back in January, they had on the agenda, they amended the lease. They said, he can't make the payments. He's had problems, Basically, it hasn't worked out like he thought it would. So we're going to forgive $400,000 of the debt. We're going to write it down to only $100,000. He only has to pay it in 4 installments and through like 2026. So they gave him a huge break. Wrote it down $400,000. And it was, when you watch that video, I mean, they were questioning it, and then when Brian Grizzell says, but remember, he's not charging JPS, the baseball teams, the high school baseball teams, to use the field, so we're getting free baseball for the high school kids. And, they all just swooned under it, you know? I mean, so
they said we would have to build new fields and things for these kids to do.
Yeah, I mean, whatever happened to the bond issue, you know? I mean, so anyway, so then they gave him his extension, and then here's where it gets really squirrely. There's three things. One, not one time did they ever ask about his performance bond. He ain't paying it. He's not paying his rent. Well, guess what? Go file a claim on his bond. I'm willing to bet he never got a bond, okay? I suspect, and this being Jackson, those people in whatever department didn't check on it, didn't keep up with it. I guarantee you he did not get a bond. You watch. Even though, and he was supposed to get one, that would have protected Jackson, all right? So we've got $500,000 on the table at least, which we need to fix traffic signals, fire code enforcement officers, et cetera. And, you know, $400,000 of that, the city council said, don't forget about it, you know? So they never mentioned the bond or even try to file a claim on the bond. Instead, they just gave away $400,000 to the guy. Now, what's interesting, though, is he has not, according to the city, he has not made a payment all year. And the funny part is, remember what I said, he has to make 4 payments? Well, it said when the city council voted, when this amendment was approved, that he had to immediately make a payment. All right, not next year, not next month, immediately. Here we are, more than 6 months later, and he still hasn't made a payment, even with all this grift going to him. Okay, seriously.
Well, you know, and he also, I know these are his words, not mine, because I heard him say it. He paid the cigar bar to close.
Yeah,
like they worked out a deal that saw them get some money, and it closed. So some money's moving around over there.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's also something else going on here, folks, in the audience, which is he's saying, we're not making any money off of baseball. We haven't had enough events. Well, he's also subleasing that parking lot out to the VA, and according to the federal website, it's a 15-year, $5.6 million contract, which comes out to about $370,000 a year. So he's getting income off that thing. And here's another fact to consider. You ever heard the phrase omission of a material fact? You ever heard that before?
Yes.
Like if you make a contract, say I make a contract to buy your building, and you just conveniently leave out the fact it's full of termite damage, leave out the inspections for a moment, but termite damage and mold and all that stuff, and I go buy the building, that family has all these structural problems and everything that you shouldn't have told me. And it was material, because if I'd have known that, we'd either knocked down the price or I wouldn't have bought it. All right? Correct. So they didn't disclose that to the city. It not once came up in discussions in January. So the city council was ignorant of the fact that, because I talked to 2 of them, they had no clue that he was getting this kind of money off the VA lease. So he hasn't made a payment. He never got a performance bond, and he didn't tell the city about his little side hustle with the VA. But he's saying, please write off my $400,000, please. And there's also another quirk. A couple of my readers brought up. Go look at Article 4, Section 100 of the Mississippi State Constitution. Cities and counties, et cetera, if you remember, they can't forgive debt. They can't write down liabilities like that. They're not. Remember that over the water bills, how that came up? They said, we can't just charge off or write off water debt. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. Now they're going to say, in fact, they said, well, he made all these improvements, so we're going to call that an in-kind payment. He was supposed to make the improvements on the contract. That's separate. They can't do that.
Does anybody know what's other than painting it some god-awful colors, what improvements have been done? And I'm not saying none haven't. I haven't stepped foot in SmithWills Stadium in 20 years. Maybe they put turf down and done all this nice stuff.
Maybe they replaced the lighting. I mean, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
At minimum, if he was paying the $125,000 minimum lease per year, subtracted from the $370,000 parking contract, that's $245,000 a year kind of floating around out there, again, at minimum, and he didn't pay the rent, so it's actually more than that. I don't know what the operating costs are. I'm sure it's not cheap to run the electricity out there and to host all the high school games. But, look, man, this guy's not doing this because it's a charitable organization.
Nobody is.
You know, there's some money being made, and the bills aren't being paid.
Well, you know, Pearl, you know, he was involved with the deal with Pearl. Look at Pearl. I mean, he was probably responsible for this part, but, you know, they got a bad bond deal out there in Pearl. They got the Braves, okay? They're still paying on those bonds. And, I mean, even, you know, the revenue from all that was supposed to pay for it. The city of Pearl's paying for those bonds, okay? Or at least a good bit of them. And there were problems down there with the Biloxi Shuckers. He helped bring the Shuckers there. And the city wound up suing him for some squirrely stuff. I mean, so, you know, it's just another example, city of Jackson. I mean, they don't do their due diligence. They don't keep up with things. And they give this guy a sweetheart deal, because that's what this is, a sweetheart deal. And when he can't pay, instead of trying to do something, if they've been doing their job, shouldn't even been an issue. Instead, they're trying to figure out every way possible to let this guy off the hook. And everybody voted, Stokes wasn't around, everybody voted for this crap except Ashley Foote. I mean, you know, it's just, you know, it goes past incompetence.
So what happens? I tell you what, can you stay on hold and do another segment?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's take a break real quick. We got Kingfish on the Mazda Jackson phone line talking SmithWills Stadium shenanigans. This is the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. Real quick before we get back to Kingfish there, this segment is going to be brought to you by Burgers, Blues, Barbecue. The Blue Plate lunch today over at the Flowwood location. Well, it's available at all three locations, downtown Madison, downtown Brandon, and, of course, the all-new Flowwood location right there in Dogwood, right in front of Dick's Sporting Goods. The Blue Plate is fried pork chops, and hamburger steak. Your sides are sweet potato casserole, lima beans, and mashed potatoes. Of course, if the Blue Plate ain't your thing, you can always try one of their world-famous hamburgers. The B3 Smash Burger is my favorite. Or create your own burger. And, of course, they got the B3 bowls, the chicken wraps, and you can turn any sandwich or burger into a lettuce wrap if you're trying to watch your figure, like I am. Anyway, burgersblues.com for more information. And, hey, don't forget, they can cater from 5 to 5,000 people, and they got multiple food trucks available for all your special events. Check them out online, burgersblues.com. All right, back to the Mazda of Jackson phone line. We got Kingfish with JacksonJambalaya.com here on the phone with us. Kingfish, thanks for staying on hold.
No problem. By the way, you're on keto, so you're not touching any of that Blue Plate lunch special.
I know, but I like to think about it.
I'm sitting listening to you going, fried pork chop, mashed potatoes this, fried that. I'm going, he's not eating any of that.
I know. I can do like the hamburger steak and the lima beans, I think. But
yeah, I mean, you can sniff it if you want to.
I know it's why I don't go, because it's so hard to stick with it at lunchtime when I see all this country fried everything around me. It's like, oh, I can't do it.
Tell me about it. I get my takeout lunch from Scrooge's, and I got to fight to tell them, do not put the cornbread in there. You know, just please leave it out, please, because I'll eat it.
I know. They're like, what bread would you like? All of them. I want all of them. That's the one I want. The Mexican cornbread, the roll, all of them. All right, back to this. So look, man. My spidey senses just ring off the hook with this thing. It just screams like allegedly, maybe, sort of, somebody could be getting a kickback on this thing. Or is it just incompetence?
With this bunch, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I could see where somebody's taking something, or they're just so damn incompetent. I mean, yeah, they didn't bother to go check and see if he got a bond or not, like they should have. They didn't, you know, try to go see if he was going to make a payment or not, what was going on here. They just let it slide for year after year after year, and the lease let them check the books on the whole operation. I mean, they were supposed to, you know, have an audit sent to the city every year, and I'm quite sure they never got one. They didn't check the books or anything. They just took everything at face value, and he just told them all this, and, you know, came up with the sob story. I can't make my payments. I've never made a single one, so blah blah blah. And they're like, okay, well, we're getting free baseball for the kiddies in high school, so, you know, okay, no problem, you know.
And what did they vote on yesterday? They voted to continue these shenanigans, right? That's what the point of that was.
I don't know. It's on the agenda for today.
Oh, wait, the video from yesterday.
Ashby Foote has it on the agenda today as a discussion item. He wants to know basically what the hell's going on.
Okay, good. I watched that video thinking it was current. I'm sorry.
No, that was from January 18th.
Okay. That makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah, what I included in my post, folks, was the discussion was about 10 minutes back in January. I recorded it and put it on my website so you could see for yourself, but it was just 10 minutes of shuck and jive. I mean, except for Ashby, nobody was asking any real questions. I mean, either they don't care or most of them, honestly, they're not smart enough to ask the right questions. Is what it is.
I lean towards the not smart enough to ask the right questions.
I lean towards that, too.
And after having this conversation out loud,
there's at least 3 of them that are not.
After having this conversation out loud, I'm going to remove any shenanigans off the table, and I think this is just incompetence.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Aaron Banks and Angelique Lee are too dumb to know which questions to ask. I mean, they really are. Virgie Lindsay, I mean, she tries sometimes. Now, if her husband was sitting up there, believe me, he would know exactly what to ask, all right? But she likes to look like she's trying to do the right thing, but she caves pretty much every time, and she did on this. I mean, she was like, okay, well, I got my questions answered, and Stokes wasn't there. And Vernon, I was surprised Vernon didn't ask any tougher questions because he's better than that. Grisello, he was the cheerleader. Make no mistake, he was the cheerleader. And I think he's kind of too dumb to ask the right questions too. Also, so make that 4.
Well, all right. My last question.
Sorry.
Well, my question for you is this: if the state takeover follows through and it goes into the state hands, does that null and void this lease, or is it?
No. It negates the lease. I suspect if the VA and state would work out some arrangement, I'm pretty sure they would. I mean, it's a good deal. It's a win-win for both sides. They have an interest, and if they're willing to pay the money, the state's not going to say no to taking money, right?
You cut the middleman
out.
As
far as the money owed, does that negate it? No.
Yeah, so the state
I mean,
the VA cut the
if it were me, I would say invalidate the whole amendment to the lease, and you haven't made a payment all year, and you didn't disclose that you were getting this much money from this. I would say, and by the way, it might be unconstitutional anyway. So that whole amendment back in January is null and void, and you owe us $500,000 or give us your bond so we can file a claim on it, And if that puts them in the poorhouse, friggin' well,
Yeah, man, it just sets such a bad precedent to allow this kind of stuff to go on. Because then you allow for one person, then the next person renting some city-owned land does it, and it's just so on and so forth, and it just rolls downhill.
That's why the state constitution has a provision against it. And like I said, they're going to try to say, well, we considered his improvements he made to the stadium as in-kind payments. And, well, the problem is the contract said he had to make those. You can't do that. Now, the question is, can Shad or the AG make them enforce it? Can the Shad go in there and say, hey, look, you can't do this. This is an illegal contract. I mean, that's a good question. We're in new territory here. I don't know. But Shad, you want some good publicity? It'd be a good route to go down.
Even if you wanted to say, okay, 2020 was a debacle, we understand. We're gonna work something. We're gonna figure something out with 2020. You still got 5 other years that rent ain't been paid.
Well, 4 other years.
Four, yeah. So it's even if you wanted to work something out over the COVID year, and even in Jackson it was almost 2 years in 21. It still doesn't negate the amount of rent that ain't been paid, and the fact that
since day one.
When they redid this thing in January, there was money due on the spot, and we're 6 months later, and we still ain't got that money. The lease is void. Right. It's either pay it or go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to sound like that because I do in my heart of hearts understand that it's we need a place for kids, for JPS to play ball, this, that, and the other. But that Jackson can't have nice things right now until Jackson has working things. Until you have working things, you don't get to have nice things.
Well, I mean, JPS needs place to play ball. Because you can't just say, okay, the high school kids can't play baseball now. They obviously need a place, but come on now. Building a couple of high school baseball stadiums isn't that hard or isn't that terribly expensive. I mean,
run over to Level Woods. They got Forest Hill Ballpark. They got all these parks in place that need a good grass cutting, and go throw the dang ball out.
Yeah.
All right.
Spruce up the bleachers, I mean, spruce a couple of high school ones, make it really nice. But I mean, just because he's letting them play, the high school kids play there, doesn't mean you also give away $500,000 too. And like I said, that's $500,000 you could spend traffic signals. I mean, you could spend on code and like blighted properties and all this crap.
Yep.
Code enforcement officers. I mean, there's plenty of things we could spend it on.
Yeah, the mayor's criminal defense fund. Who knows? All right, brother.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that next week. Kingfish, have a great 4th. Thank you for jumping on, brother.
It ain't 4th. It's Independence Day. Remember that. Everybody calls it the 4th. No, it's Independence Day.
Good call there.
Do we say Happy 25th of December or Merry 25th of December? No, we don't.
Very valid point. I need to get a cup from you too. I saw them; they look good.
All right, thanks, Chief.
All right, brother.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Kingfish, Jackson Jambalaya. There's only one. There's only one Kingfish, and there's only one Clay Edwards, and we'll be right back with more of him.